Now, OPEC and its allies have agreed to increase oil output. The group is sticking to its plan to gradually restore production halted during the pandemic, approving a 400,000 barrel a day increase. Well, we're joined by Alex Booth. He's head of research at Kpler. Alex, thank you for joining us. If you look at OPEC Plus, we also have to look at compliance. So they say one thing, but then it, depends on how many barrels of oil they actually produce and put out. What's compliance looking at right now?
Well, I think the previous concerns around OPEC compliance is, are they managing to limit their production relative to the expectations in the market? In actual fact, we're in the opposite scenario these days, where they have an agreement to increase this 400,000 barrels a day every month, but actually they've really struggled to do that. So through the second half of last year, we saw exports, or kind of the supply to the market, increase by about 330,000 barrels a day per month on average. So decently lower than the agreement. That did tick up slightly in our data in December, with kind of actually Angola surprising. Oman is slightly higher than we would expect, or the market would expect as well. But the difficulty is that, particularly in, say, West Africa, where Nigeria disappointed last month as well, exports down just over 270,000 barrels a day, month on month. We aren't seeing the oil that OPEC could supply to the market, essentially.
Alex, talk to us a little bit about how tight the market actually looks in the first quarter. I know it's tighter than we thought before because of Omicron, but are we still underestimating it?
Yeah, I think a lot of the balances going into this year were factoring in initially OPEC Plus bringing back that full production allocation as it could. That's not happening. And at the same time, there was a lot of basis on Iran bringing oil back into the market as well. So the fact that there is this drag on supply from OPEC as it is, the talks with Iran are generally progressing quite slowly, so we're not going to see that oil there. And the concerns from Omicron are that's still ever present, but I think waning. And so the demand expectation for most of the world's outside of China, is their caveat, is still quite healthy.
In terms of some of the surplus supporting that output hike, Alex, were you disappointed with what OPEC Plus did, or do you think they're kind of on track to meet whatever is thrown at them?
I think they've continued to take a very pragmatic approach. In the run-up to Christmas, we were saying actually it makes sense for OPEC to maintain the outcome of the decision last month. Made sense for them to maintain supply as they are. It makes sense for them to maintain supply into kind of January and into February. The balances ended the year tight last year. We saw about a 2 million barrel a day deficit in net supply to the market through December. Inventories, as well known, inventories are low on a global basis. They're continuing to decline. And places, for example, where you would have seen historically, or at least through COVID, demand restrictions and kind of mobility restrictions in place, they're opening up. The likes of Australia is having a bit of a change in its strategy against how it combats Omicron compared to previous waves of the virus. The only place where we're kind of really concerned on this demand is the demand impact is with China and Hong Kong, where they are kind of continuing to maintain this very strict control over the virus.
Alex, also in terms of price differential, WTI's discount to Brent seems to remain pretty narrow. Does that change in 2022?
I think we're seeing some kind of real changes in the types of crude that are available in the market. So, for example, there's a statement from Iraq saying they're no longer able to supply Basra Light into the market. That will kind of go into medium grades. We're seeing the changes, which is kind of announced at least in Mexico. That's a longer term duration. Again, that's going to impact some of those kind of medium sour grades potentially as well. So there are going to be some shifts around in the qualities that we're seeing, and especially as more oil is kind of gradually coming back from OPEC. kind of at this stage, I'd say it's too soon to say to make a call on that WTI-Brent differential through the balance of the year. Though we just need to see how these qualities and the volumes of qualities change through the year.
Alex, thanks so much. Alex Booth there, head of research at Kpler, joining us on OPEC. Now, coming up, the race to dominate